Mandukya Karika, Pranam Mantra. Om Bhadram Karne Shinuyama Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairange Stustuvagum Sastanubhi Vyashema Deva Hitam Yadayu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti Nastakshyo Aristanemi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. The previous day we discussed the waking state. Some of my good friends, very good friends, they're fascinated by this Mandukya Karika, and they have been listening to my other talks too, Hindi, Bengali, English. In fact, I request you, if you have time, do listen to other talks, because although the number of videos is pretty large, you will find them extremely useful, because we are trying to cover as many scriptures as possible. Now, what happened was, two of my very good friends, one is Kalyan Boro and another is Shivangi Kashyap. These two, they felt that they were not able to understand properly whatever we have been discussing. So they have started transcribing these talks to understand. And what is very interesting, they sent me, Kalyan sent me the first one, the Vedanta. It's good. It needs editing, but it's good. So those of you who are interested in knowing what they have been transcribing, you can ask them, or you can send mail at our ishrkm@gmail.com. Why they are transcribing? They feel that the mass of information that is flowing, everything is new. And we are trying to simplify things. We are speaking as simply as possible. However, the subject is subtle. When you read the Vedas and the Upanishads, particularly the Upanishads, you know what Max Muller told about Upanishads, that these sages went to those heights where the very lungs of ordinary mortals will burst. When you go to height, 20,000, 25,000 feet height, your lungs will burst. The sages are talking about ideas. They belong to extremely rarefied. Here in this world, the ideas are extremely gross. When you read stories of Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc., and of course, most other religions, they are, at best you can say, they are subtle. When it comes to Upanishads, they're simply sublime. So some other friends also mentioned that we need to have a relook at whatever we have been discussing, so that there is a general revision of the subject. Oh, that reminds me, here we have Son's Cancer Adventure. Some of you might see, he has written it there. He's a very good friend of mine, Son. And he's an Irish gentleman, and he stays in London, and deeply connected with India. and he knows about Upanishads and yoga. And he informed me that he has a cancer problem, third stage, and he practices Mahamrityunjay Japam regularly. He wants to come to India for many things, and one of them being to meet me. Now, why mention Son's name? He loves Mandukya Karika. He loves inspired talks also that we are discussing. He loved my Yoga Sutras discussion too. But he says he loves Mandukya Karika. And today he informed me that he had to go somewhere, but looks like he had joined. So wonderful. I mean, when I see that person like Son who has seen life and who has seen death, he very beautifully wrote the difference between religion and spirituality. He said, religion is when you don't want to go to hell. Spirituality is when you have been to hell and do not want to go there again. You have returned from hell. Wonderful. See, People, people who are into learning, they can think well. They can express much better. Wonderful. I feel privileged to have him as one of the listeners. However, what Son told me, the little, he likes, that means he doesn't have any complications understanding this topic, and he must be enjoying. However, many of you, particularly those of you who have taken admissions in our course Indian Spiritual Heritage in English, you might be finding it difficult. So let me put things just in brief, in as simple words as possible. In case you have difficulty, see, I got some very strange questions, and those questions were so stupid. Stupid is the right word, written in capital letters, that I was horrified. That looks like they don't understand anything. They're not even struggling. They're not even trying to listen. I'm repeatedly requesting you that please, in case you have difficulty, please listen from talk one. Mrs. Shivangi told me that once she started transcribing, she realized how clear I am, how things are absolutely clear. Problem is that simply because you people have a graduation degree in some subject, or you have some specialization, you think that you can understand everything. No, you cannot. As I said, what Max Muller told about the Upanishads, you forget about understanding. If you simply want to appreciate what these Upanishads contain, simply appreciation, you need to rise so high that at least you can look at them. Something like you want to know what Mount Everest is like, something like 30,000 feet high. Now, it may be impossible for you to go to Mount Everest. But at least if you take a flight, if you go by an aeroplane, because generally aeroplanes flight at those heights, 30,000, 35,000 feet, you're in a cocoon, and at least you can see, oh my God, it's this height. Remember, Upanishads have always been for the chosen few. Throughout the history, the way the mantras were chanted by the Brahmins and the priests, even by the commoners, not the Upanishads. Because your mind needs to be extremely fine. How to compensate? Listen again, and don't go for these popularistic talks. If you want to learn a subject, learn it the hard way. There are many popular talks, and somebody was telling me that in South India, this Mandukya Karika is so popular that many are speaking on Mandukya Karika, but you really can't understand. Actually, you cannot understand because it needs very subtle understanding. Well, I remember long ago, I was in Kanpur, and there was an elderly lady, and she was connected with an organization, and she told me, oh, She was listening to Astavakra Gita and Mandukya Karika. I wanted to laugh, but her son was a famous doctor connected with our center, so I didn't laugh. It's not that easy. There may be glamour associated with these things, but if you want to learn, first thing that you need to understand I'm recapitulating the whole thing. Upanishads are not a theory. Upanishads are the truth. Number one. Number two, no one is forcing you to accept this truth. Unlike as, say, in Christianity or in Islam, whatever is there in the book, you have to accept. No, it's not. What they say that those of you who have studied the life of Sri Ramakrishna, you know it very well how he went for Mother Kali, and then Totapuri came, and then he had his realization of Advaita. God incarnated as Sri Ramakrishna. This time God was not a warrior. He was not a diplomat. He was not a silent preacher like Buddha. He came as a typical devotee. How a devotee grows. How a devotee grows who is not into scriptures. He is not even into learning. Can he reach the highest? Yes. And then he left his copy, Swami Adbhutanandaji, Latu Maharaj, who was just like Sri Ramakrishna, illiterate, unlearned in scriptures, and yet he reached up to the level of samadhi. Now, what exactly you see in samadhi? Well, we don't know. What they say that it is an undivided mass of consciousness. This is Atman. Undivided mass of consciousness, which means only consciousness is there, nothing else. There is no division into it. No division whatsoever. It's a solid mass. And it is conscious. Because it is conscious, it is love. And it exists. This is also known as Satchidananda when we talk. But the general term is Atman or Brahman, depending on from what perspective you are talking. If you are talking from the perspective of the cosmos, it is Brahman. If you are talking from the standpoint of the individual, it is Atman. Fine. Perfectly all right. So these sages, not one, two, three, not like in Christianity we have Jesus, and after that there is a complete blank. Hinduism doesn't run that way. First, they will say, I have realized it, you too can realize it. Then they will give a name. They will give names. For example, if you study Upanishad, we have these talks on the YouTube. You can listen to those, Upanishad. And then clearly the teacher is telling, we heard it so from our teachers. So there is a tradition. Mandukya Upanishad, they will go on listing that it came in such and such tradition. So the important tradition, which means that there were many who realized this. And if you look at India, if you look at Indian traditions, you will see that there are many who have realized all this. When Sri Ramakrishna came, we could see, oh, yes, whatever we have heard in spiritual history, these are not tales of fancy or fantasy. These are truth. But how do you explain this world then? Fine, we agree that we had great sages. Even a person like Nachiketa, a young boy who went to Yamraj in Kathopanishad. Kathopanishad talks are also there. Kathopanishad. And he learned the secret of Atman. Fine. And continuing with the tradition, there was Totapuri and we had Sri Ramakrishna. But why am I seeing this multiplicity? Why? Why I'm seeing this pen? My friend Son, he beautifully wrote a mail. So there was a lot of penness again in this talk. I mean, there's only object that's there on this table, so I use pen. So why this multiplicity? We have this pen, we have microphone, we have microphones. You say that the reality is a mass of consciousness. Then how come, where from comes this multiplicity? If God was happy with himself, why did he create this universe? These are very serious problems. What's the answer? God's will. Swami Vivekananda beautifully says that when you say God's will, you simply mean to say that you don't have the answer. How do you place it? Well, that's the truth. What Vedanta says is that there is no answer to this because this question is irrational. Because that why and how, these questions belong to the mind. Consciousness is completely beyond mind. Either you have experienced it or you have not experienced it. If you have experienced it, you know. If you have not experienced it, nobody can make you know. No one, no one, no one. Definitely not me. Not even Sri Ramakrishna can make you understand. Just no way. Either you know it or you don't know it. Sri Ramakrishna very beautifully said that you cannot make understand the enjoyment of a husband and wife to a 5-year-old girl. No, you cannot. The enjoyment of a couple cannot be explained to a 5-year-old girl. Even if you want to, you cannot. Then why do we need to study a subject which I can't understand? No, they are not saying that you cannot understand. It's not like some religion where it says that he was the last prophet or he was the first prophet. No, no, nothing like that. He says, you took into it. But why do I need it? Because all your problems, all your pains, all your burning, all your suffering are rooted in this world. Once you know who truly you are, you will get out of all this pain. And that is why, Hinduism doesn't convert. At least till the other day, Hinduism never converted. Reason being, they said, if you are in pain, if you are in suffering, come to me, I'll teach you what to do. But if you say, oh, I'm fine, I'm having a grand life, continue, go ahead. You will say that I am happy with my wine and gold and this. Go ahead, go. Keep on enjoying, keep on suffering. Once when Swami Vivekananda was in America, he was talking to the group, class talks, where he was talking about this Atman and Brahman. The old lady got up and said, Swami, I see my true image. Atman is about true image. In my gold and jewelry. That's real for me. Swamiji very beautifully said, yes, madam, you continue doing that. And after thousands of births of seeing these things as real, finally you will be disillusioned and then you will walk this path. Words are mine, ideas are his. What is the meaning? The meaning is that, see, people who are enjoying this world, you simply cannot make them understand. Try convincing your friends, try convincing your relatives to listen to these talks. They'll just go, they'll think that you have gone crazy. They will not listen because, see, here in India, we have a huge population of beggars. Recently, Supreme Court, in a very clear judgment, said, beggary cannot be stopped. Said, this is an elitist standpoint that there should not be beggars. I loved it, statement. In fact, when I was writing Param, my book Param, it's a very nice book. There, Param encounters a beggar and he doesn't want to give. So he says that the land who worships Buddha. Now, who was Buddha? A beggar, spiritual beggar. What else? Mendicant. What am I? Me, Ramakrishna Mission monk. After we had sannyas, it's mandatory, compulsory for us to go out, beg for our food for 3 days. Compulsory, mandatory. the land that adores sannyas, the land that adores Buddha, that very land wants to ban beggary. What kind of hypocrisy? Now, I'm not in favor of beggary or begging. What I'm saying, I mean, that's a poverty. That's a different issue. What we are discussing here is that there are things, as far as Atman is concerned, you cannot explain. Number two, when a people, when people suffer, now see these so-called beggars, or sometimes news comes that they had lots of money. Maybe they are suffering, maybe they are not. What is very interesting about these beggars, they are not ready to give up their begging bowls. When you criticize a monk, sometimes monks are criticized as being weaklings, cowards, drifters. And come on, even a beggar doesn't want to give up his begging bowl. We are not talking about, say, a beggar like Buddha. We are talking about ordinary beggars. Now, here, when we are discussing this Atman, and when these questions come of why and how, you realize that people who are into enjoyment, as I said, even beggars don't want to give up. What to say of people who have some amount of luxury, some amount of enjoyment? They will never give up. Blessed, indeed blessed are those who find interest in these kind of talks. They are unusual. Believe me, they are unusual. Nowadays, of course, we are having these talks on YouTube. Earlier, we used to have classes and people used to come from far off places in the heat and humidity of Kolkata. And I used to say, blessed are you that you come to listen to these talks. Hinduism believes in this. If you come to us, we will tell you what to do. Because the problem so-called rationality, the problem of so-called scientific attitude belongs to the realm of mind. And Atman is absolutely beyond it. How can, forget about me, even Buddha cannot make you understand. Sri Krishna cannot make you understand what is Atman. He took 700 verses to explain. I mean, plus minus, leave out the introductions. Either you know it or you don't know it. Simple. But to make sure that the tradition itself doesn't die, they had a guru-disciple tradition where they say that, okay, even if you don't realize all this, please maintain this, because a time may come when a competent disciple may come, he may want to know what these are. I belong to that tradition. I belong to the tradition who is trying to maintain this Indian spiritual traditions, Indian spiritual heritage. Because some of you listeners, you don't know. You may come and you may say that I want to know this. But what the teacher says that, look, how this Atman has become this world cannot be explained. Why it has become cannot be explained. But we can tell you how to understand. Please listen to this. This is a very interesting observation. Here is that mass of consciousness as experienced by every great acharya, called prophet, call any word, call a sage. In the depths of meditation, you realize what? Mass of consciousness, Atman, is the ultimate truth. Call it by any name. Now, when they come back, they see this multiplicity. Actually, they don't. But for others, there is multiplicity. Now what? Here comes a disciple and says, I am suffering, or they simply say that we want to learn. The teacher will say, I cannot really explain why the one became multiple. I also cannot say how, how that one became many. But I can teach you, I can show you the way to know how there is no multiplicity actually. This is the most important point. If you understand this one single statement, you will understand the crux of Vedanta. Vedanta doesn't get into why creation. Vedanta doesn't get into how this creation. They give some theories there. They're mere theories. Even they're not very happy about it. And that's why they use the term Maya, which is divine ignorance. They say, but we can teach you, at least theoretically, how you can get out of this multiplicity. This is what Mandukya Karika is doing, and this is what every Upanishad does. Upanishads do not go to explain why this world. They will not say how world has come from Atman. At times they say, but that is to make you understand the primary thing, that is Atman. But most importantly, that they will say how to remove this multiplicity. Because multiplicity is a product of mind. Multiplicity being a product of mind, they will teach you how to get rid of this multiplicity, at least theoretically. Who can go for it? Those who are really curious, those who really want to know. Most importantly, those who are fed up with this world. For example, me, I'm totally fed up of this world. Of course, I don't have that power to rise ever. I tell you, there is nothing in this world that interests me. Such a boring place. Absolutely boring place. So when Upanishads start teaching, first thing they will say that know that there is no multiplicity, which means Atman is Brahman. Atman is the individual and Brahman is the cosmic. There is absolutely no division, no distinction between Atman and Brahman. How it is special? In every way it is special. Why? Take up any religion or even take up the Ramayana, Mahabharata, Purana, etc. of the Hindus. They will always be talking about Creator God. And the moment there is Creator God, there is creation. And creation will always be inferior to the Creator God, not in Vedanta. Vedanta is not meant for the faint hearted, nor is Vedanta meant for the weak in head. You have to be extremely strong in heart and extremely is powerful in your head, not strong headed or headstrong. There's not a good word. English is a very confusing language, extremely confusing language. But now the problem comes that knowing the formless is impossible, something that we have discussed many times. Brahman is formless, we said, solid mass of consciousness. You cannot know Brahman. Goal of Upanishads being Atman is Brahman. So you need to understand Brahman. Brahman is formless. This is something they will continuously be saying. That Brahman is formless. How do you understand form? How can you conceive of formless? Is it possible? Impossible. Those who go on preaching formlessness in the name of religion, I wanted to use some choicest of expletives. You can use those expletives from your own word stock. They understand nothing. Simply because some book, some prophet. So, today someone wrote me, I want to do Upasana of Saguna Brahman. I always say, you follow what your guru has said. Someone wants Sagun Brahman, someone wants Nigun Brahman. I don't know. Probably they have no work at home. They will be far better, absolutely far better washing clothes and far better cooking. At least something will open up in them. Now, what Upanishads do to make you understand the unity between Atman and Brahman. Those of you who are interested in understanding not only Mandukya Karika, but also Upanishads and Vedanta in general, just once this thing you understand, and you will understand the central reasoning process of Vedanta. They use, the term is this adhyarop and apavad, superimposition, and then removal of that. It's a beautiful technique. I'm sure you won't understand if I just give the theory. Think of a big shop, supermarket kind of thing. Or rather, there's a shop that sells lots of commodities. Let's say sugar and salt and spices. And imagine that mostly that shop has sugar. Just imagination. That will make you understand things better. And you know, sugar comes in many forms. There are cubes, although cubes can be made larger. And then you have granules. And sugar can also come as dust. So, and sugar can come as candy. Just imagine that you have a shop where you have different kinds of, you have sugar in different form. Here comes a kid, shop owner's kid. And he doesn't want to, he is not able to comprehend. This bag number 1, this bag number 2, this bag number 3, this, or shelf number 1, shelf number 2. Now the shop owner, the papa, he wants to make his son understand that, well, all these things are sugar. What he does, he writes on a piece of paper, sugar, 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 sugar. Small amount sugar, big amount sugar. Probably you may not be, I don't know, you might have, whether or not you have ever experienced, when we were kids in those days, kitchen belongs to moms. Nowadays, of course, things have changed. Now, those moms, they knew what spices and what commodities are in which boxes. Sometimes in the box of sugar purchased, they might have purchased something and label is there, but salt is kept. Perchance, mom is out. Papa wants to prepare something. They will go by labels and will get completely confused. What you do is, you do labeling. What is labeling? Superimposition. What else? Every time there is labeling, you are just superimposing. So there is also sugar, there is also sugar, this is also sugar, this is also sugar. And finally, when you have understood everything, you remove those labels. And now you know everything is sugar. Probably this example was not very good from my side. But I hope you will understand. So what these sages do? They superimpose certain things on the individual. Why on the individual? Because we may not be able to understand what is Brahman. We may not be able to theoretically get even the slightest glimpse of what is Brahman. But we know myself. I know myself. I'm Samarpanananda. I have 2 eyes. I have 2 hands. I have body. Everything. I know. So what Upanishads do, they begin exactly from this point. You know yourself to be like this? Yes, fine. We'll start from here. So if you are a true learner, when I'm talking of the Upanishads, if you're a true learner, you can be led from that simple point of that you have a body. And from there they pull on. And this is what they are doing here. The body is most concrete. Body being most concrete, it's so easy to lead from this point. Now, when you are explaining everything with body at the center and the body taking in things, being conscious of it and being conscious of the external world, this is waking state. This is what we discussed. So, essentially, what we are saying that Atman is Brahman, but this cannot be understood. It's not easy. So, what you do is you superimpose certain things and then take those things away. So, whole thing becomes one. As I told you once, in botany, if they have to do a longitudinal section of, say, a leaf, what they do, they put it between wax, solidified, and there is that fine razor-like machine. It goes on cutting, and then it cuts the leaf too, and then you can see it under a microscope. So you first put something, and then you remove it. So what Mandukya Karika is doing here, it first takes up the micro, and we explained earlier how micro and macro are essentially same. So once you understand the micro, you can understand the macro too. And that's why it is focusing on the three states. And in the final state, superimposition from both will be removed. And then you realize that Atman is Brahman. That these are the general principles. Now here what it does is, once it takes the body and the waking state, it says the body has this Atman has four states. Now let's try to understand a bit of theory of creation according to Vedanta. That will make you understand. Think here is this light, and you people must be sitting, and you put some kind of dark net. That means some plate which has holes, and switch off everything. If you put it just below the light or in front of the light source, you will suddenly see that one single light is now coming out as hundreds and thousands, depending on how many holes are there as streams of light. And this stream will be different from the other. But actually, is there any difference? No, there is not. How many different streams will be there? That will depend on how many holes there are. This is Maya. Maya is limitless. Because it is limitless, the number of holes in front of the source of light is infinite. So the streams of light coming out from there is infinite. So you have infinite souls. People ask stupid questions. Why is it that the population is increasing? Sometimes I wonder at the sheer stupidity of these people. People who are into religion, they're not stupid people. Come on. Before you come charging at us, calm down. At least have the humility. To say that, well, I want to know. I want to learn. No, they will come charging. Once someone wrote that this creation through mind by Brahma is not scientific. I wrote in reply, this is far more advanced science. Someday science will reach that state. What do you say to these people? What do you understand of science? And do you think that I don't understand of science and you understand of science? Do you think that these questions may not have come to me? Why are you attacking us? When you attack us, you know you are thinking that we do not know. It's not that we know. Because we have come from the same society, same educational background, where you are still fallen down. So at least have some respect for the subject. But no, they won't have. So when Upanishads talk about 4 states, which we mentioned earlier, that there is waking, there is dream, and there is dreamless. These 3 we are accustomed to. And there is a 4th, which is Atman. And we also mentioned how these 4 states are not real divisions, but are imagined. Why imagined? This theory of creation that we mentioned just now, that is a covering with holes, is not something real, because if it is something real, this can be put again, and again. That means there will never be bondage. This is imagined. In reality, Atman alone exists. But as far as our world is concerned, when you see from the perspective of the world, there is a covering. And this covering is Maya. Now, the moment that light is coming out of that covering, it kind of gets colored. There are different hues. Just imagine that instead of the holes, there are glasses of different colors. These are known as Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And once you have 3 as 3 primary colors, from these 3 primary colors, you can have any number of colors in this universe. Just like that, from these qualities, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, you can have any number of personalities, just infinite possibilities. Now, this light is now known as Jivatma. This is a technical term, or simply Jeev. Now, this Jeev, in reality, is one with the light. The ray which is coming out from the main light through that hole is same as that, but now it is different. It appears different in every sense. Atman that is present inside me is in reality Brahman. But because of the superimposition, it now identifies itself with the waking state. When it identifies itself with the waking state, it is known as Vaishwanara. Vaishwanara is the most common term. And when it identifies itself with the dream, it is known as Tejas. And when it identifies itself with the deep sleep, it's known as Pragya. What is at the micro is same at the macro level also. These things we discussed. So now, first question will be that, okay, fine. Since we are imagining, why have 4 states? Why not more? Actually, there is no problem. You can imagine more states, but it is not needed. Whatever we want to understand, it is enough if we have 4 states. Can Atman have many more states? Maybe, but it's not needed. As far as our body is concerned, if you're seeing Atman from the state of this body, then 4 states is just more than enough. Because the goal is to show that the cosmic body of God, that is Brahman appearing as the universe, and Atman appearing as the body, in reality have similarities. So these 4 states are more than enough. And then second thing is that in waking state, they talk about 7, says, Saptanga, 7 limbs. and 19 mouths. Here we just need to mention 7 limbs. Now, this idea of limb, as far as limb is concerned, this can vary from tradition to tradition. That means someone may say that I I'll divide this body as say 10 limbs. Someone will say 5. Traditionally, people have considered body to have 7 limbs. In Upanishads also they have described it as 7 limbs. So it continues. As for mouths, now mouth is a very interesting thing. We all know about our 5 senses. We also know about 5 senses, five organs of action. 10 is very easy to understand. Do you know that now scientists are saying that there are lots of internal things that we perceive? For example, there is a rumbling in your stomach. You are conscious of that. You are not able to breathe properly. You are conscious of that. They say these are also senses. And yet these are not senses. Do you know science has no answer to it? Those of you who keep on talking about being scientific, they have no answer to it. That we are being aware, we become aware of these things. There is a rumbling in stomach. Or chest is feeling constricted. You are feeling that constriction. Should we add these things as senses? Understand, your ancestors solved this issue thousands of years ago, and they called it Pancha Prana, 5 pranas. The breath that we take go inside and work inside us as 5 vital forces. And when your stomach rumbles, there's a prana for it. When your chest is feeling constricted, it's because of a particular prana going wrong. When you are dying, there's a particular prana working. When my good friend Son, about whom I talk, when he is doing this Trambakam Yajamahe Mamrityunjay Japam and pumping up his vital energies, there's a particular prana working. And there are 5. Pranapan, Vyan, Udana, Saman. 5. Science has not succeeded in solving this simple thing, and we have known this thing for now thousands of years. And we are called backwards. So now we have 5 internal, 5 external, and 5 spatially internal in the form of vital breath, 15. And there comes mind, because mind works in 4 different ways. We mentioned earlier, it explores, it categorizes, etc. So take that makes 4. This is a division. 15 plus 4, 19. Because it has 19, this 19 is attributed, right word is attributed on the cosmic 2. That is Brahman appearing in the world is God. Now he is also imagined to have 19 mouths. Because see, you're imagining things, as we said, like putting labels. That makes things easy. Nothing. Not that he really has. One gentleman, he asked me, do you really believe in Kalki avatar? So I understood he is follower of so and so preacher who is a real rogue. I wanted to tell him some fantastic mythological tales from his religion, because after all, I have read religions. If you start speaking against them, there will be a riot. You can't. They can come and do anything to you. And they will say, do you believe in Kalki avatar? Do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? Do you really think that this God was doing this? Come on. These are all superimposed on the ultimate reality. Ultimate reality appears as Shiva. Ultimate reality appears as Vishnu. Ultimate reality appears as Sri Ramakrishna. Nothing wrong with it. So we have now 3 terms connected with the 3 states: waking, dream, and dreamless. Waking is known as Vaishwanara. Here, we mentioned once that in Sanskrit, whenever a name is given, know that that name will be indicator of its character. Once a friend of mine was very furious with me. He was pretty angry. Said, "You are Samarpanananda, that is self-surrender to God, and you are so arrogant and so talking about so full of self-idea. How come you are given the name Samarpanananda?" The idea is that name and character, these are related. They have to be related. Vaishwanara. Acharya Shankar defines it as uh, Vishwesam Narayanam Anekadha Nayanad Vaishwanara. Nayanad. Nayan means to carry. Nayan. No, the eyes are known as Nayan in Sanskrit. Sanskrit has many words for eyes. In English, you have only one word, eyes. In Sanskrit, hundreds of words are there for eyes. And each of those words indicate a particular attribute of the eye. Says this Jivatma, the light that we mentioned, that coming out from the source of light as a stream of light, it's traveling all over the universe. Universe, the seen universe, the unseen universe. Who is carrying it? The Jivatma. Now, because it is being carried through Vishwa, through the entire creation, this is known as Vaishwanara. This is what he says. Yadva Vishwa cha aso nara cha iti Vaishwanara. One is that soul keeps traveling, or rather it gets carried, Nayan, carried. So it is known as Vaishwanara. And second is that entire universe in the Vedas have been described as a human being. Nara. Vishwa appears as Nara. Nara is human being. Vishwa is universe. Universe appears as a human being. That's how it has been described, as we mentioned. That is why it is Vaishwanara. Similarly, when it comes to Teja, which we are supposed to discuss today, I am not sure if we will be that everything is internalized. There is no more external stimuli. Tejas means lighted. Now your mind is seeing the lighted up ideas instead of the lighted up external objects. That is why it is known as Tejas. Prag is very interesting. Prag, they say that Atman is in that state silent, but it is knower of past, present, and future. So we have three names: Vaishwanar, Tejas, Prag, three states. Now, when we had stopped, I think I gave you general overview of whatever we have discussed till now. One thing that we had missed to elaborate, that was the difference between Sankhya and Vedanta. This question others also ask once in a while. And Acharya Shankar, he imagines somebody raising an objection that, okay, fine. If you say that Atman has four states, we have no objection. Okay. As far as three are concerned, we know. Fourth, you are introducing, fair enough, we shall see. But why are you bringing in the cosmic form? Why you say that at the cosmic level it's same? Acharya Shankar says, this is where Vedanta and Sankhya become different. You see, according to Sankhya and Vedanta are extremely similar. It's only at the highest level where they differ. What is the difference? Sankhya will say that the soul inside every individual is unique, meaning different. This is something common. If I get liberation, you don't get liberation. So naturally, I am separate. Vedanta says that no. If you cover one hole, other holes will remain. Streams of light will continue. They will not stop. Why Vedanta brings in this cosmic form is to show that Vedanta is different from Sankhya. If it had talked only about the four states of a common man, then it might have ended up as being Sankhya. The moment it brings in the cosmic form too and says that as here, cosmic form also has the three states. That way, there's a similarity between individual and universal. That is what takes you ultimately to Aham Brahma Asmi. Atman is Brahman. If you do not bring in this cosmic form, then this whatever has been discussed will end up being just like Sankhya, and there will be no difference between Sankhya and Vedanta. And they have this huge problem between Sankhya and Vedanta. So we don't have much time, but let us continue with mantra number 4 because that's the topic. Now they are talking about the dream state. Unfortunately, we will have to complete it quickly. Swapna sthanto antah pragya saptang ek unvinshati mukha pravivikta bhukta bhuktai tejaso dvitiya padah bhuk tejaso स्वप्न स्थानो अंतः प्रज्ञ सप्तांग एक unvinshati mukha. This is from just like the previous mantra. Pravivikta bhukta tejas dvitiya pada. Madhurima has written in Sanskrit, in transliteration, and English translation. Tejas is the second quarter. Now we are entering Tejas. It's sphere of activity. Now Jivatma, the soul that's connected with that state, it is active. It continues to be active. How? By being conscious of the internal objects. What was external has now become internal objects. And just like our waking state, it is endowed with 7 limbs and 19 mouths. And it is experiencer of subtle objects. Swapnasthano antah pragya. So first we will explain certain very basic things. As far as dreams are concerned, we don't know what exactly dreams are. The dream specialists, the neuro specialists, the psychologists, and forefather of psychology, Freud, who wrote Interpretation of Dreams. You cannot understand anything what he's saying. No one has the answer. Vedanta has a very clear answer. There's one thing good about Vedanta. Whatever they say with confidence. And you cannot contradict them. It says, from the empirical standpoint, we're seeing it from outside. There's a causal relationship between the waking and dream state. We know. There's a very clear, because the kind of things we see in the waking state, similar kind of things we see in the dream state too. There is a causal relation. So you cannot say that dream is something separate and waking is something entirely different. Surprisingly, we find that in Indian scriptures also sometimes they say that some dreams are sent by the gods. Well, we also, particularly in Christian tradition, they say sign from God. So if you can have sign from God in the waking state, if you can have certain revelations and realizations in the waking state, you can always have visitations from the gods with small g during dream state. Now in this state, what happens? A person stays aware of the external world. We stay generally aware of the external world. You might have seen, this is a personal experience, when you are dreaming, a mosquito comes and you are aware of that, and it is beautifully woven in the dream story. Somebody comes and knocks at your door. That knocking is beautifully woven in that story, not in dream, not in dreamless state. In the dream, it's beautifully woven. But the sense organs, they don't work. As far as dreams are concerned, sense organs, that means you are not taking in as far as sense, the active sense organs are concerned. No, they are not there. So, dream states are more like memories. They have more similarity with memories than the waking state. Now, because the senses are not working, you cannot say that that this is really same as the waking state. No, it is not. It is entirely mental state, and it is an entirely mental activity. There's a difference between waking and dream. Why dream is different from waking? Because not because the world exists, you are aware, but in its subtle form. Why in the subtle form? Because your senses are not working at all. If your senses were working, for example, they talk about REM sleep, rapid eye movement, and all those things. But your eyes, as we understand, they are not working. The ears, the way we understand, we don't, we ears do not work that way. And that is why you will see in yoga also, they talk about five vrittis, five kinds of vrittis. Praman, Viparya, Vikalpa, Nidra, Smriti. Praman means right knowledge. Right knowledge is what you gather from your senses in the waking state. That is one, and there are others. Smriti, that is memory, and Nidra, that is dreams. They are classes of mental state, that is vrittis. So, dream cannot be, under no condition, can be equated with waking, or can be considered to be in some way related, in even it be distantly. No, there's just an influence, and you can kind of, there's a causal relation, nothing more than that. Experiencer is experience of experiencer of dream, who is experiencing the internal objects. We will explain it further. It's not that easy. Interestingly, the impressions that are left on the mind from the waking state and from the dream state are similar. As far as mind is concerned, our mind, so you will remember some of your dreams even after years. Once somebody told Sri Ramakrishna that he was seeing this kind of dream, and Sri Ramakrishna was very happy. He said, "It's time for you to take mantra diksha." The kind of impressions that are left on the mind by the waking state, similar impressions are left by the dream state. That's in brief. And as for nine limbs and sorry, 7 limbs and 19 mouths, that's similar. As far as cosmic form is concerned, this is known as Hiranyagarbha or Ishvara. And as we mentioned that, because it is mental activities are seen as being lighted up, this is known as Tejas. Tejas is directly related to Tej, which is light. And Acharya Shankar very beautifully explains this idea. In the next talk, we will cover this dream state from their dreamless state, and maybe if we get a chance, we may enter the Karika, the first Karika, which relates these three. Dream, once you have understood that idea of waking state, understanding dream state and dreamless is not that difficult. So we have crossed our time. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. In case you have any problem, particularly those of you who have taken admissions, we will request you to send your Mail. Message rkm@gmail.com. Now, please be very careful about what you send, because if you don't understand, listen to the talk again and ideas will become clear. Remember that these are subtle subjects. These are not to be taken lightly. Thank you so much.